The following is a special presentation of the Not Quite Right podcast, in which we discuss, in detail, entries to our erotic flash fiction competition, the Not Quite Right prize for flesh fiction. This episode contains adult themes and is not appropriate for listeners under the age of 18. And Mum, if you're still listening, that's on you.
Something doesn't seem quite right.
Welcome to Not Quite Right. My name's Ed.
And I'm Amanda.
Amanda, are you ready to do the Monster Mash?
Oh, hello.
Perhaps the Monster Pash.
Bit of both.
So we're here to talk about fantasy and supernatural category for the Not Quite Right prize for flesh fiction.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be talking about the Podium, the second and third stories in this category. We're reading out the second place story, but we'll be saving the winner for the final episode.
Do you think that's a bit frustrating? I feel like that's a little bit frustrating for people.
I don't know, I think people appreciate a good tease,
Okay.
a good edge. We've certainly been teasing them for quite a while.
It's been a year. This is a long
It's a long tease. If you can get all the way to the end, we salute you. So we'll be talking about this category and the Podium stories very shortly. But before we get to that, we wanted to have a little chat with our guest judge for this category, which is fantasy and supernatural. And our guest judge was Elise Scott. And Elise has actually helped us judge a whole bunch of categories. So we'll be speaking to Elise several times in the coming episodes.
And I have to say, I really valued Elise's feedback. You know, we were getting just very insightful, very kind and well-considered comments about each story. And I was blown away, to be honest, by Elise's feedback, and at some times made me reconsider stories and sort of what they brought to the table. But, you know, once again, Elise was bringing these skills for free and donated that time, and I really appreciate that. And I have to say, Elise took that task on with gusto and seemingly enjoyed the task. But, you know, it was a big ask. It's a lot of hours.
It was a lot of hours reading and a lot of hours speaking to Elise on the phone as well for all this. Obviously, you all heard a little interview in the long list episode as well. So we're very happy to have Elise back, and we'll play our little chat now. So thanks for joining us again, Elise, and we're here to talk about the fantasy and supernatural category. So tell us your thoughts about this category.
I loved this category. I was surprised at how much I loved it. And on reflection, I think maybe that's partly because fantasy and supernatural stories tend to lean really, really hard on character development. And good characters do a lot for me. I get really engaged with good characters.
You say that, Elise, but I feel like, you know, this world of fantasy and sci-fi, and I mean, sci-fi is a little bit separate in the way that we judge this competition, but that it's world building more so than character building that we see, and certainly in all the fantasy and sci-fi that is well loved around the world, obviously outside of the erotica space. It's like the world that people fall in love with and the characters too, but it's hard to build a whole world in a short space of time.
It sure is. I think there were some stories that actually did manage to really land the world building. There was one called something about Lamisia, the flowers, the succulent.
Yes.
I can't remember the whole name of it, but that one had phenomenal world building in a really tight space. But, and this may be different for different people, but if I think about the fantasy stories and the supernatural stories that I read that I get the most excited about, they always have that character hook right at the beginning. Like we did have a lot of situations instead of just like a person being like, I am going to have sex with that guy over there. There were a lot of, you know, oh, this god is trying to smite me, or like, I need to deal with this strange new plant life form I found, or like have been hunting for this thing forever and finally found it. And in those situations, if you give that moment of the why, like why does this matter? Why do we care? Those moments are like opportunities for character development that give me that like meaty character to hook my claws into. That's a really creepy way to say that.
You're in a safe space, Elise. It's fine.
Well, I guess, you know, I also am the BDSM and, you know.
Actually, we should touch on that for anyone who hasn't listened to the previous episode. And sorry, I have to mention the fact that the heavens have opened up over here, and there's probably a lot of white noise on the microphones right now, but it is raining very heavily, and I'm not sure whether to take that as a good sign from nature or a bad sign from nature.
Absolutely gushing right now outside.
But Elise, please share with us a little bit of your backstory and I guess some of the elements of your life that inform your judging of this competition.
Okay, so I am queer, I'm non-binary, I'm on the asexual spectrum, and I was a dominatrix for many years. I mean, it's kind of one of those things you don't stop being, but I'm not practicing now. And never like a professional dominatrix, just like a, hey, I think I want to do this for fun kind of a thing, but very heavily invested in that process for a long time.
So you're coming into this from a space where you have some access to a world that maybe not everyone has access to in terms of this kink space as well.
Ooh.
But when it comes to fantasy and supernatural, which is the category we're talking about now, like, have you ever had sex with an alien? This is very important information.
Alien, no. Vampire, maybe.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't know how you feel about this, Elise, but the vampire category was kind of interesting. We had a few stories in the vampire space, but of course we had this theme as well, which was make the unsexy irresistible. And I felt like some stories were just a classic vampire story with a sex scene. And I'm not sure, but I don't feel like vampire is an unsexy place to start. I mean, I'm not saying I'm necessarily attracted to vampires, but I'm not sure I would call it an unsexy class of being.
I agree with you. And there were at least a couple, maybe more, stories where I was very confused by that. I mean, I think if you go back, even all the way back to Bela Lugosi, right? Like the whole point of the vampire is like the non-vampire human being enthralled with like the potency of and the vampire's longing for blood being like akin to a sexual desire, but deeper, and then like the life and death stakes of it all. You know, it's definitely highly sexually charged.
But you and I have both agreed, Elise, that we don't find Brad Pitt that attractive. And
even when he was a vampire.
Even when he was interviewing with a vampire. Not our thing.
No.
But yeah, I mean, we've got this whole world as well, of course, of Twilight and vampires and so on. And it's never been my thing, I'll be honest. But also, like, I do understand that it's quite a sexual thing. It's not unsexy. I think a couple of stories struggled in that regard to sort of prove themselves as starting from an unsexy place. And
there were some good twists, though, on the vampire trope. And I think the stories that went that little step extra to add something unsexy or to kind of add that twist.
That's
I think
true. I know what you're talking about. And
the one or the two that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
They were definitely elevated. So what I loved about this category is that there was so much variety. There was vampires, there were a lot
fairies,
of plants. There were aliens, there were plants, so many things that I wouldn't have expected to read about. What were some of your standout stories, Elise?
I'm really bad at names and titles. There was one that involved the pricking out of seeds as the unsexy thing. I loved that story. It definitely haunts me to this day. Like I thought it was lovely, again, because the characterization in it was so complex that everything that was happening was really rich for me. So I really like that. And then I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but apparently I have a thing for mushrooms.
Yes, there were a few stories there, and
you're all over
it. Very positive.
I got really mad at one point because I read like the 5th mushroom story that I really loved, and I was like, I was sure I was going to hate this one when I first started it.
No, I have to be honest, like the mushrooms were getting to me by the end as well. Although I say this as someone, okay, I don't know if you're familiar, Elise, with the mushroom cook. Have you heard of the mushroom cook?
No.
Okay, so in Australia, in recent times, like within the last year, there has been a very, very prominent news story about a woman who basically killed off her in-laws with some poisonous mushrooms. It's a very, very famous story here in Australia, and she's been convicted and so on. So the mushrooms are a little bit tainted in Australia. Yeah. There's a little bit of an edge of danger that you might experience if you encounter some suspicious mushrooms. But yeah, there were surprisingly a few. There was certainly plants. There were some sexy plants, and then very much sexy mushrooms, sexy mold, sexy kind of just growths. Yeah. But it was very successful, I have to say. Like, I don't think I remember a sexy mushroom story that wasn't good. So I don't know what it is about mushrooms that just gets us.
I mean, they do kind of look like penisy, so maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure that's the whole story.
I'm way out of my depth on this one.
Is this some female gaze thing? Mushrooms?
It might be. I'm pretty sure that there is not a mushroom category on Pornhub.
You say that, but there's an everything category, I'm sure. But, I also, Elise, was very surprised to find that this was probably my favorite category as well. Like I might have predicted about myself that I would have liked the comedy category the most, and I certainly did enjoy it. But something about the fantasy and supernatural category got to me. And you're right, I think, when you say that there's more this kind of story development that happens. Like we've got to set up something beyond just a bare concept. Like we've got to sort of set up a world and we've got to set up a challenge and then we've got to overcome that challenge as part of the story that I think might have been part of the appeal as well.
I also think that in the fantasy and supernatural genre in general, and I do a lot of writing, most of the novels that I've written have been like contemporary fantasy or low fantasy or contemporary sci-fi. And I think there's a lot of room for subversion because you're allowed to kind of break whatever rules you want to when you're in the speculative space. I love subversion.
No, tell us now, Elise, you bring up the fact that you're a writer. I want to hear more about your writing. So I know you've written a novel and that novel is coming out in 2026. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the novel is called The Black Cat Detectives, and it is a cozy murder mystery, which means that even though it's about murder, it doesn't have gore. There's no on-page sex. So it's like the exact opposite of what we're doing here. And the main idea of the story is that there are 3 orphaned kittens who are rescued by a stage magician. And then shortly thereafter, she is accused of murdering her boyfriend. And the kittens realize that if they don't save their newfound human, then she's going to get hauled off to the human pound forever. So they have to solve this murder to save their human. And I wrote it for joy. Like the whole point of it, I had a terrible year where I lost 5 elder cats all in the same year.
Wow.
And it kind of crushed me. And I was trying to like reclaim my joy. And I decided to create these cat characters that were like vibrantly alive with all of the things about all of these cats that I had loved so much. And so it really rekindled my joy. And that's what I hope it does for other people.
It's such an interesting space. I have a friend locally who writes cozy mystery, and I know it's something that's quite popular and probably growing in popularity just in terms of like claiming this niche and people being aware of it. Tell us a bit more about cozy mystery more generally. Like, who does it appeal to?
So the idea is that it doesn't have the sort of more stressful elements that are usually associated with the mystery and thriller genre. So it's something that you can pick up when you want to lose yourself in a good book without wanting to feel all of that stress, which is not to say that there isn't tension, because without tension, a story is going to be boring. So there's always some kind of tension driving the story forward. But some people who write cozy navigate that by having the stakes be relatively low. I did not really do that, but a lot of times it's more about the sort of general vibe that you're immersing yourself in. So cozy mysteries tend to have a setting that is almost like a character that you want to go spend time in. And they tend to have really glorious food in them or some kind of like hobby, like knitting that is a core element of the story. And they always have amateur detectives. So it's like the little old lady who solves mysteries. The Miss Marple from Agatha Christie is like a classic example. Yeah. Cats are a really common feature in the cozy mystery genre, but I have not yet seen one where the storytellers are the cats. And that's what I did. I have one human POV. A quarter of the book is told from a human perspective, but the 3 kittens each have their own POV also, so it alternates.
Interesting.
And that was so fun.
So are they, like, we're talking cats, so what's the mechanism by which we suspend our disbelief in terms of the cats talking and thinking? How does that work?
So the cats in my story can communicate with one another, but 95% of their communication is via nuances of body language. And the remaining 5% is through the sort of typical vocalizations that you hear a cat make in real life, the meowing and the chirping and the purring. So cats can understand each other because their communication is body language based, and they can understand most other animals and vice versa. But we humans have gotten so obsessed with I think the cats call it like a ridiculous like tongue-based language or whatever, this mouthy noises that we make, that we've lost the capacity to read a lot of the nuances of body language that are common to the animal world. And so we cannot understand them, or we can only understand the absolutely bluntest, most overt things that they attempt to communicate, like standing by the food dish yelling.
All right, so tell us, when's it coming out? How can people grab it if this appeals to them, if they like the idea of cozy mystery? Where can they find your book?
So they can pre-order it anytime they want. It's available now. Probably the easiest way to find the pre-order link is to go to my website, which is Elise, Scott with 2 T's, SCOTT.com. It bears noting that I wrote the book under the pen name Kit Gray, but my website is my name, EliseScott.com. And if you go there, it will be absolutely obvious how to get a copy of the book.
Okay, great. And we'll put a link, obviously, in our show notes as well for anyone who is keen. But we would also like to award one of your books to your top pick for this particular category. So can you tell us, Elise, and they might have to wait a little bit until it releases, but which is your top pick? Who should we be sending the Black Cat Detectives to?
So my top pick for the fantasy and supernatural category is Marwan's Marvelous Myxomycete. I loved that story.
And this was a mushroom story, right? A bit of fungus.
A mushroom story.
They put the fun in fungus.
It goes without saying.
And what did you love about this story in particular?
So I loved the narrator, the character, and there was a really complex exploration of the narrator's relationship to their own body and embodiment. And then they meet this sort of supernatural mycelial being embodied as a physical form, but also goes way beyond that. And through interacting with that character, the protagonist, the narrator of the story, is like broadened and is given an opportunity to sort of heal their relationship with themselves in a lot of ways. So I found that really powerful.
Quite a complex story. It's not just fungus porn.
Right. Although it is very good fungus porn.
Very good fungus porn as well.
It's spooky in some places. Like I was reading it like, why is this appealing to me? Like, so it also really met the brief because it's like slimy and gritty in places. And I still really loved it.
I mean, me and Ned were saying earlier tonight that sometimes the hottest things are kind of gross a little bit as well. So there's something to be said for that.
So congratulations, Joshua Kana, for your story, Marwan's Marvelous Myxomycete. You'll be receiving a copy of Elise's story very shortly, or once it comes out, I guess.
So congratulations, and thank you, Joshua, for sharing that super spicy story. And thank you, Elise, for helping us with the judging for this category. So we'll be talking to you again for a couple of the other categories. But thank you so much for your insights and I guess educating us as well.
My pleasure. Thank you for letting me participate. It's been an honor.
And yeah, monster sex. This is another one of those categories that we were looking forward to. Like obviously we've done an episode on Chuck Tingle, and monster sex as well was one of a topic of conversation for the podcast. So one that we had been exposed to, I guess, on a couple of occasions. So really keen to see what our entrants had come up with.
So this category received 63 entries, which was actually the second lowest. So one of the smaller categories.
That's surprising, actually.
A little bit. And I mean, I think there's some crossover between categories is part of that. But I have to say, I honestly, coming into this, thought that erotic comedy would be my favorite category. And I did enjoy the erotic comedy stories a lot. But when we got to the podium judging level, it was the fantasy and supernatural category that really got me. I loved these stories. And maybe it was the imaginativeness these stories. I'm not sure. Certainly the authors were really investing themselves in these characters and their world building. Yeah. I don't know how you feel. Like I think we probably had a bit of a different experience, but I loved it. Yeah, I did enjoy it. I think part of it is the fact that we did have a longer word count than we do in our regular comp as well. That's true. So 1,500 words is a little bit longer, more time to develop your world and your backstory and all the kind of things that you want to
do to bring it to life. And there's also something a bit freeing as well about having non-human characters, and especially when they're on a page rather than on a screen, and you don't have to necessarily describe every aspect of them. You can just kind of evoke them. Yeah. And I think that can be quite powerful, and it's strange that that does have that effect. I mean, I think if I were reading a category explicitly for erotic purposes, I don't think I'd necessarily choose this one. And we've spoken about this before on the podcast, but definitely coming at it from like a competition and reading these stories for fun and you know, judging them, definitely, yeah, it was surprising that they were so effective and captivating, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you're couching that in very vanilla terms there, but I found this to be the spiciest category. Yeah. And they were so diverse. Like there was such a diverse range. It wasn't all one thing. It was all different things. And I feel like for each author, it was their thing, you know, and they were investing themselves fully into it. And maybe it is that one step removed. If it's not human, we feel like more comfortable to express ourselves and to make that spicy without it feeling like it cuts too close to home. I don't know. I honestly don't know what the answer is. I do know that I found a lot of these stories incredibly spicy, very fascinating, interesting, like fun.
Well, it sounds like we might be seeing Amanda at the milking farm.
Oh, hello. Well, I have to say, so now we had a little flag when we were judging, and the flag was non-human, okay? And non-human just meant this story features in its, I guess, sexual activity a non-human entity. Now, we've already spoken about in the erotic comedy category the inanimate objects, but in this case it was non-human, meaning like animate, but maybe not an inanimate object, you know, like
a vampire or a werewolf.
Yeah, vampires, they're probably the more obvious contenders. Again, this goes across all categories, but for what I imagine are obvious reasons, we saw more of them in this category than others, and there were 69 stories that featured non-humans.
Ironically.
And that included everything from aliens, vampires, dragons, Santa Claus, werewolves and dogs, a frog, a fuck monster.
Wow.
You insert your own imagination there, and stacks of plant and mushroom-based creatures. So I think inanimate objects, maybe Plant Daddy Dave with his actual houseplant, but when it comes to non-human, more of like a plant-based kind of creature, like more of some kind of fairy or imp. And even a garden gnome. But I was expecting more fairies, to be honest. I was expecting more fairy smut and was surprised not to find it. There was certainly plenty of garden smut.
We did definitely see them, and some of them were standout stories, but we saw less of them, and I think that's partly because of the theme here, when the theme is make the unsexy irresistible, and a lot of those things are already sexy.
Yeah, it's hard to
make
a vampire unsexy. Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges of the fantasy and supernatural category, I guess, is that world building and making it feel realistic. Like, I guess you can suspend disbelief, but you have to have enough there to make someone feel able to suspend their disbelief and to enjoy suspending their disbelief for the extent of the story. Much like, you know, we talked previously in the erotic romance category about how the gender maybe of the characters didn't really play into how sexy we perceived it to be. That was not an issue or a barrier for us. And in the same way, like there's specific character or creature in the fantasy and supernatural category. I'm not a big vampire person, but if you make the vampire sexy enough, I will be on board, you know. So I don't think that was an issue for me. I don't know how you felt about that.
Yeah, it's just another thing, really, isn't it? Like the gender and the species, I guess, in this case of the characters. I think I wonder if part of it is that by the end of this process, we have become so desensitized to the content that we're reading that it might be that we've just pushed our own boundaries to the point where we find this stuff quite normal. Yeah. And we will read a story about a fairy or a vampire or like even crazier than that and just go, oh yeah, I could see that happening. Yeah. Or that makes sense to me.
But I mean, it is normal because that's exactly what we asked for. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like people are just coming out of the woodwork. It's like we asked for this and we're so happy to see it. And there was this extension, not so much of the inanimate erotica, but certainly this imaginative side of things where pushing the boundaries of maybe what's conventionally expected, but nevertheless bringing in that same level of sexiness, that same arousal factor into whatever relationship might result. One, I guess, issue that we might have had in this category and others, to be honest, but I guess it comes to mind here, is the consent issue. So we had a couple of rules for this competition. One of those rules was that everybody who partook in the sexual activity needed to be reasonably described as 18 plus, like a consenting adult. And, you can have an alien who's a consenting adult as much as you can have an alien that's a non-consenting minor. I think the way you describe something allows it to sort of fit into that category. So we were ready to sort of be flexible on how we interpreted that. But there are a few stories that maybe cross the boundaries in this category. And the thing that springs to mind first is bestiality, which is something I'm very uncomfortable with as like an actual real thing. When it comes to fantasy and storytelling, like obviously it's like bull characters and werewolf characters and other sort of semi-animal characters that do not bother me at all, because it's very clear that they have like, I guess, a human mind, and that's the thing, that's the issue. But there were a couple of stories that maybe crossed the boundaries in terms of what could be considered consenting.
Yeah, it is a tough one really to judge because it's words on a page, right? And we don't know the full story. We don't know what the author's intention was. We don't know really what's in these characters' heads, or like if something is described, is it capable of consenting? Like we can only make assumptions. We know that a human adult is capable of consenting under normal circumstances. We don't know if like the particular creature that you're portraying is capable of consenting. And so we would give the benefit of the doubt if that person is like sapient and speaking normally, let's say, or clearly exhibiting presence of a consciousness that could actually consent or not consent. But if the case was that those things weren't there, like if it's the difference between having sex with the bull man at the milking farm as opposed to like an actual bull. An actual bull.
So, and the closer it gets to actual bull, the more uncomfortable I become.
So we did have to draw that line a couple of times just because it felt like it was on one side of the line as opposed to the other. So that was one consideration. I will say it wasn't an overarching thing for this category. There weren't many of the stories that fell under that.
I mean, I think more often than not, like we're experiencing that as just a half person, half, whatever it might be. Yeah. Even if it was a dragon, right? But you can perceive the dragon as having its own mind. I think that's where it kind of becomes easier. But again, the closer it becomes to an actual animal in the real world, the more uncomfortable I become. But maybe that's an issue with our rules as well, because, at times I felt I was sort of weighing up things against our rules when what I really wanted to weigh it up against was my own comfort level as to what I felt comfortable sharing or not. And sometimes I think the rules were too strict in that regard or a little bit too specific. And once you looked at the author's intent and the impact of the story, it didn't feel problematic. And something could sort of meet the rules and feel problematic. So I think maybe if we were to run this competition again, and we sort of chatted about this already in the long list episode, but maybe we would be a little bit more flexible in the rules and just kind of clear on what we're comfortable with.
Exactly. And maybe more explicit on what we absolutely don't want to see rather than try and kind of generalize it.
Yeah. But, all that said, like I was all here for all the different creatures. It was good fun. And, all the different anatomies that we saw was good fun.
Interesting stuff. All right, so let's not keep you hanging any longer. Let's get to the stories. So we're going to talk about our third place story and our second place story in this episode. We'll read out the second place story, and Amanda will have the privilege and honour of reading that out. So I'm looking forward to that.
It's a good one. I'm going to still nevertheless struggle.
And of course, we won't be reading out the winning story because that is going to be saved for the final episode for the Flesh Fiction series, in which we will read all of the winning stories for all the categories and announce the overall winner. But for now, for third place gets a copy of a novel by Nikki Sex. So Nikki Sex is an erotic fiction author with, I guess, a bent towards like kink.
Ooh.
A little bent towards kink. So if you're interested
towards bent, if you will.
Maybe. So if you're interested, check out Nikki Sex's work. We'll have a link in the description, and she has a lot of stories that are available on Amazon. But the person who will win that book and who has come in third place is The Succulent Garden of Lamisia. And that's by Julia Rajagopalan.
This got my nod for sexiest, I think.
And it involved basically an alien race of some sort. And there was a garden and a plant, like an aphrodisiac plant that kind of got that alien going. And maybe it is a common trope, I don't know, but it's not something that I had read before. So that felt very fresh to me, very new.
Got me hot under the collar, I have to say. There was a little bit of a voyeuristic kind of element going on as well in that story, which added another little level of spice towards the end there.
Is that a thing that you enjoy?
Apparently. I mean, this story got my vote for sexiest.
Yeah.
It was quite intense.
And quite explicit. Absolutely.
Very explicit. I applaud that massively. I think a lot of people sort of shied away from really going there with the spice, and this one didn't.
It didn't, and it was very descriptive. And look, a lot of it was the sex as well. It wasn't just, I think that was one thing that I found with a lot of the stories, just generally speaking, is that there was a lot of build-up and then a moment of climax at the end, which, is a formula, I guess, that makes sense. But I also appreciated the ones that kind of were just hot the whole way through and just kind of developed that from the beginning, and this was one of those stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
So congratulations, Julia.
Congratulations and thank you.
So let's get to our second place now, and the person who comes in second place.
Oh, hello. Hang on.
It's raining in that jar today, a little innuendo jar. So the person who comes in second place will win a bottle of wine and a Dracu palm grinder, which boggles the imagination.
Well, from memory, this particular one has teeth.
Which is quite appropriate to the story, I believe, which we'll find out in a second. Yeah, bottle of wine, and the bottle of wine comes from our friends at Naked Wines. And the
special friends.
Special friends. Send us more wine. Naked Wines, please. I can't get enough of that shit. And the Dracu palm grinder comes courtesy of Odyssey Toys, and they specialize in fantasy and supernatural sex toys. It's very appropriate for this category as well.
So, of course, we'll have links for our sponsors in the show notes. So if these things interest you, and I do encourage everyone to go and look on the website and check these items out. Yeah, you can follow the link and find out for yourself.
Maybe you don't know what a grinder is. Check them out on the website.
I didn't. Can I just be honest?
I didn't know.
I didn't know
when we got these grinders, it was the first time I'd laid eyes on one.
First time I'd laid any part of my body on one. You know what I'm saying?
But not the last.
Well, I hope our second place getter enjoys this prize. And the story coming in second place and winner of these prizes is Going Down by Verity Flame. The lift doors ground open with a shuddering scream, like a banshee mid-climax. Sylvie's abdomen cramped despite the heat pack she clutched. She ran the numbers. 15 floors up. 24-hour convenience store below. It was 9 p.m. and she was already in her pajamas. The worn, comfy ones, with 4 extra holes in, frankly, inappropriate places. A fresh cramp grabbed her. Day 1 of her period was an absolute bitch. Ice cream was necessary. Feeling like a bedraggled rat, she darted into the lift. Sugar, heat, bed. That was her mantra. A mash of the ground floor button and she was on her way. At level 13, the lift slowed. A very human sense of foreboding gave her a hint of warning before the doors wailed open. She froze. Lucian Hayes entered the lift. He was tall. He was effortless. His cheekbones should have been illegal. He was also, as his striking canines declared, a vampire. This time of night, she would have assumed the building's most eligible bachelor was heading out. But he looked more ready to stay in, wearing a button-down cardigan and relaxed pants. Though she would deny it under questioning, she looked into him. More underworld adjacent than shady. He acquired rare items in questionable but legal ways for wealthy clients. Like all truce-compliant vampires, he collected his blood from the voluntary donor bank. She had even seen him helping the elderly witch on level 3, Mrs. Volnikar, carry her groceries. Sylvie was sure he had no idea she existed. Until now. Evening, he said, as he reached a finger to press the ground floor button. She nodded, unable to form an immediate answer, imagining what else she would like that finger to do. She had run this scenario in her head more times than she was willing to admit. They all involved her feeling in control and wearing actual clothes or none, without a crime scene happening in her uterus. Frantic, she tried to think of something to say. The lift started to move and interrupted her thoughts with an ominous screech. There was a moment of free fall. She grabbed onto the handrail, which pitched her close to Lucian, and her eyes locked with his. His gaze seemed to pull her in further. A jolt, and they had stopped. When it became apparent the lift had decided not to fall further into gravity's embrace, he looked away. She watched him try the lift buttons without success. The intercom buzzed uselessly. Adrenaline pinged through her system. She was aware of the 4 Fs that came with this. Down low in her belly where the ache was. And a warmth was definitely curling to life. She was very aware. Unfortunately, fight, flight, and fright had all sidled off stage, leaving fuck with the mic and a captive audience. That was why she didn't move further away. Plus, he smelled good. Fresh soap, mixed with the night air and candle smoke. Shit, she wanted to crawl inside his scent and live there. Looks like we're not going anywhere. I'm Lucian, by the way, he said. Oh, I know, she thought. Sylvie, she replied. I know, he said. Her mind short-circuited at his words. He gestured to the doors. Before we try some brute force, any hidden talents I should know about? He asked. Not unless you want to accuse this lift of a crime, she managed. I've heard you make quite the compelling legal argument, he said with a smile, and her stomach flipped. In a valiant attempt at something, anything, she reached for the doors and tried to separate them. No luck. Lucian moved up beside her, and he pried the doors apart to reveal solid brick. The corded muscles in his forearms strained, and Sylvie felt another pang. This one laced with lust. She must have made a sound because he glanced back at her, his eyes sharpening. He must have been able to tell she was bleeding. The heat pack was probably a dead giveaway too. Sorry if this is making things difficult. She gestured downwards. I know this kind of blood is not ideal for you, she added, and wished for the lift to plummet right down to hell. He cocked his head. Well, that depends. Oh shit. That was a fact that was now burned into her brain. And other places. What if I told you I can tell? He asked. Everything stopped. What exactly did he mean? Oh? She asked. Or at least meant to. But it came out more like a gasp. His mouth twitched into a small smirk. Your heart's racing. I can feel where the blood's going. His eyes flicked down before he seemed to realize what he'd just said. He looked momentarily self-conscious. I mean, I noticed you around, but I wasn't sure you'd be interested in, he said. His awkwardness was what pushed her over a line she never thought she'd cross. She struck first, her mouth colliding with his. He froze for a split second, seemingly in shock, and she wondered if she'd completely misread him. When he groaned low and hungry and surged back against her, she felt the handrail press into her back as he opened his mouth and his tongue swept against hers. The heat low in her belly blazed. She broke off, gasping for breath. Lucian had taken a step back and she saw his dark hair was in disarray. It was now or never. Please, she said. Before she could second-guess herself, his pupils were blown wide. A slight ripple in the muscles of his shoulders showed he was forcing control. What do you want me to do? He asked, slowly, deliberately. Even through a haze of desire, she realized he'd require very specific permission. I want you to eat me out, she said. He moved in and arched an eyebrow at her playfully. I'm going to need the magic words, he said. She almost moaned. I consent to you feeding on me. An eager grin sprang across his face and he lifted her easily up onto the handrail. He bent to kiss her while his hand, those fingers, pulled aside her pajama pants and period underwear. He settled between her thighs. You smell so good, he said. The warmth of his breath tickled her skin. A long lick up her thigh sent an eruption of goosebumps in its wake. She groaned and shifted closer to give him better access. His tongue reached higher, teasing, not quite where she needed it. She felt her own wetness rich and insistent. A small, desperate gasp escaped her lips. In response, he licked a slow circle around her clit, and she moaned, her head falling back against the lift wall. You really like playing with your food, don't you? She said. He moved to her opening, and she swore she felt him grin against her before he thrust his tongue inside. The slide of him against her blood-slicked wall sent a ripple right through her. A cramp chased after it, and she groaned, caught between sensations. Lucian started sucking and lapping in building rhythm. He only paused to swallow. A sound which made heat flare in her, sharp as a live wire. Her thighs clenched against his shoulders, every muscle coiling tight. Another cramp clenched deep, but his tongue turned it molten, shifting the ache into pleasure until she could barely tell the difference. She looked down and he caught her eye. The glint there, gentle and mischievous. It pushed her to the edge. She shattered with a ragged cry, shuddering hard enough that the lift seemed to hum with her. She drifted for a few seconds, loose and languid. Her return was unsteady. She stepped down onto shaking legs and looked up at Lucian. The reality of what they'd just done hit her. Pain, pleasure, blood. It was all such a mess. She was a mess. Crawling away into a hole forever seemed like the right course of action. He reached over to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, and he licked away a little of the blood, her blood, from his top lip. An echo of her orgasm fluttered through her. "Let's get out of here," he said, gesturing to the emergency exit above them. He popped the trapdoor, lifted himself up through the gap and turned back to her. Like a knight, he extended his arm down. "I have a couch and an electric throw blanket," he said. Even in ratty pajamas, with cramps like knives, he wanted her. It shook her deeper than any aftershock. "Ice cream?" she asked, taking his hand. His smirk reappeared. "It's only fair we get you something to eat as well."
So that was fucking hot. So thank you, Verity Flame, for your wonderful little vampire escapade.
Oh, wonderful. Is that the adjective we're using here? I mean, Verity Flame, can we safely assume that's a pen name, do you think?
We can. That was very sexy. And it's not the fact that it's a vampire that is the unsexy thing. Obviously, it's a little bit of an added element. And it was an element that worked really well with the plot. And I'm surprised, actually, that I haven't encountered a similar story before. Because
I'm sure they exist.
I'm sure they do exist. It seems likely.
Yeah.
Here is a story as well, I think, on the romance episode I mentioned as well about like when someone is feeling unsexy, you need more than just the other character to be there and to tell them.
He was keen. He was all over it.
He was showing rather than telling, I believe, quite effectively in this scene, and it was super hot. And I love the line about like the 4 Fs.
Oh, yeah, that's such a good line.
Right.
I believe Elise called that one out as well. Yeah, that was a great line. But also where he says, "What if I told you I can tell?" Like that is so fucking hot. I don't know why, but it is. I don't know. It's a sensory thing.
Okay.
But you know, like she's all awkward and embarrassed and he's just like, I know, and I'm here for it.
And he's very respectful about it. There's rules of consent and he abides by all the rules. So
and she's consenting.
She's
We're very happy. And clearly
exactly.
I think part of it as well is like you do get a sense of this longing. Like when we first see him, it's like she's been watching him for a while and keen, and when she's not aware, but it's revealed that it's the same in reverse.
Exactly.
So it's like feels more satisfying when they get together, I guess, because clearly they're both not only just like, oh, hey, we ran into each other in a lift, but like this has been building for some time.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't just the spur of the moment thing. There's backstory.
Which is kind of cool because it is a very, very short story. So to be able to bring in some of that emotion of what might have come before, I think is kind of clever. So yeah, I think like a really strong take on the theme, like for many women, you know, periods are not sexy. It's like the time of the month that you feel the least sexy of all. And so to have not only someone who's cool with it, but someone who's like a massive fan of it is like pretty hot. Tick, tick, tick in the theme box, if you will. Just ticking boxes.
Thoroughly ticked the box. Ticked and licked. So congratulations, Verity. Well done. And a bottle of wine will be coming your way, as will a Draco palm grinder, which, as Amanda mentioned, has some teeth on it. I believe they're soft latex teeth, so you won't hurt yourself.
So disappointing, really, when you think about it.
But you can still use your imagination in a safe way.
Yeah, good fun. And congratulations. Thank you so much for sharing your talents with us. That was a standout story.
So we're not going to reveal the winner in this episode. You'll just have to hold out a little bit longer.
That's cruel. That's cruel torture.
To deny your satisfaction for just a little bit longer. But we will read that out in the final episode.
It's difficult to imagine a hotter story, honestly.
But there are some very hot stories.
Something to look forward to.
Indeed. But we'll be back very shortly with our next category, which is kink and taboo. So that should be a lot of fun. But until then, bite on.
Bite on.
Thank you for listening to Not Quite Right. If you'd like to reach us via email or follow us on social media, you can find all the links on our website, notquiterightpodcast.com. That's WRITE. And if you enjoyed the show, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcasting app.
Something doesn't seem quite right.
I'm just thinking about a funny intro to say to this category. Not like strap yourself in, but like...
Strap yourself on.
I mean, but like fantasy supernatural.
Oh, I'm sorry. Something about tentacles.
Something about like...
Something to tickle your
ghosts
fancy.
and like goblins.
Goblin. Oh, this one's for the contest, goblins. Oh, you'll be goblin, all right.
God, these nuts.